What is up, Republic of Gamers? Hello and welcome to ROG Pulse, the weekly podcast where we dive into all things tech and gaming. Where today we're really just tunnel visioning on technology because we've got two guests from Intel joining us to do a deep dive on the new 12th gen CPUs. The Alder Lake CPUs are here, and well, they're awesome. So we're going in. But joining me per usual, we've got Jeff Ketman. Jeff, what's good?
Yo, I'm just not too much. I'm just it's wintry here. I'm trying not to get the SADs.
You say not too much. I know personally you're going ham on VR. You just ordered a full index and you got the body tracking as well.
Yes, I did.
How
I have I just ordered 3 Vive trackers. I've got the index. I'm going for it. It's really for playing audio trip on stream, like as mixed reality, getting an avatar in and like having full control over it. So I'm really excited about that opportunity.
I'm actually really excited to get your firsthand report on it because that's an investment, like to say the least.
It is. It's it's a few dollars, but it's well worth it.
Very cool.
So we'll see how it goes.
Okay, we'll start with you, Marcus. Marcus, welcome to the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do at Intel and what kind of games and stuff you like to play?
Thanks, Jake. It's great to be here. I'm at Intel. I'm one of the technology evangelists, but basically, I just absolutely love tech. I used to be a tech journalist, so I went there absolutely tech journalist tonight. There are a few of us joining the dark side, but it's just loving technology for so long and having a chance to peek behind the curtain and actually work at Intel and see kind of what really goes on behind the scenes and the years of work that go behind these processors and everything that Intel does. So, my role is to really understand the technology, distill the information, and just make some pretty cool content about it and talk about it, right? Because these are complicated things. And Jeff, as you know, as a former journalist yourself, that the hardest thing is to take something super, super complicated, but distilling it into plain English or something that your audience understands.
For sure.
Yeah, and just loving it, right? Just absolutely loving it so much that you make it part of your living.
As someone who needs that plain English explanation, I appreciate you guys because you really do make my life a lot easier. So, you sent me an image that we used for our graphic, and I noticed that you have this glorious Metal Gear Solid shirt. What kind of games are you into? Are you a big MGS fan?
Yes, huge MGS fan. So I don't discriminate which platform games are on. I mean, the great part is that consoles and PCs are sharing like a closer architecture than ever before.
True.
But I grew up on 8-bit Nintendo, but soon I found that wait a minute, there's these really cool games on PC like King's Quest that you could not get on the console. So those old style RPG games from Sierra have a really soft spot for those, but on the original PlayStation, Metal Gear Solid, there was really nothing like it anywhere else, and the voice acting, it was just such a cinematic, great game. Obviously, the shirt that you're talking about is Metal Gear Solid 2, so that amped up the cinematic part of it. Remember when the Konami and Kojima hired Harry Gregson Williams to do the soundtrack of it? Right?
Oh my God, so good.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of all the original voice actor. I got to have a shout out to David Hayter. David Hayter as well. It's like nothing against Kiefer Sutherland. Great voice.
I don't know. I love David Hayter myself too. Like I was a little sad when they replaced him. He was mad too, but who knows what the politics are there.
I know, and the guy's the real deal, right? He's a screenwriter. He wrote the original X-Men movie. So
it's funny because like I've cosplayed as two characters in my life. I've cosplayed as Solid Snake and I've cosplayed as Wolverine. And I'm pretty sure David Hayter has been the voice of Wolverine in multiple X-Men cartoons and he's done Solid Snake. So it's like, well, I clearly like these characters and he clearly is these characters in a way.
Yeah, he's got that gravelly voice, but love console games, but there's no replacement for keyboard and mouse. So when it comes to shooters, I wish I had more time to game these days, right? When you have a full-time job, you're working with really cool gaming desktops. But I think that the game that I've spent the most hours in my life is probably the original Quake, like Quake World.
Respect.
That's one. But yeah, and these days there's so many games. There's no way that you can play them all. I just added Game Pass to my to my monthly bill, and so Back 4 Blood is taking up a lot of my time. But I just wish I had more time to play all the games.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We've been back for blooding for the past couple of weeks.
We're playing again tomorrow on stream. It's going to be a good time. And just to address the question in chat, I did carry around a box as part of my costume, so don't worry. That was absolutely part of the costume.
Did you ever use the codec sound as your ringtone.
Oh, absolutely.
Or-
I mean, for years
yeah.
and years and years. I mean, I fully embraced it because my handle actually was given to me when I played Smash Brothers competitively, and I played as Solid Snake. So it's actually like
Oh, nice.
it's a long story. But okay, Alex, welcome to the show. Same question to you. Tell us a little bit about what you do at Intel, how you got there, and then of course what kind of games you've played growing up and what you are into now.
Sure, awesome. Thank you guys for having me. Very excited to be here with everybody. I started at Intel as an analog design engineer, and then, like Marcus said, slowly came to the dark side of the marketing world of the tech evangelist. Like he said, people in the side of engineering is like, oh, you actually have social skills. Maybe you should go translate engineering in normal speak. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And yeah, I came over and I really like it. Haven't changed since. What I played, I mean, I play a lot. What I played lately has been, I've been spawning a lot in Call of Duty. I did that for a while, so
Does spawning a lot mean
like
you die a lot? Is that what?
I mean, I can hold my ground, but I'm not like an amazing player. So, and kind of looking forward to Battlefield, even though Battlefield 4, I pretty much sucked. I was kind of the guy where the Battlefield friends kind of were inspired from. You know, the guy who throws the medikit in front of the other guy while he was crouching. Yeah. Anyways, I like that. I'm trying to pick up again Marvel. I think I want to start Marvel again, Marvel Avengers. And,
Oh, okay. When someone says Marvel, I think Marvel versus Capcom, like the fighting game, because that's been around forever.
I like that. I like that when I was really young going to university. I was like Wolverine and Ryu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I didn't get too far.
Yeah,
so that, and someday finish but at least get the majority done of all the Assassin's Creed. I'm still in Black Flag, and we were having a conversation before we went live that I haven't picked it up in so many months that I think, what do you guys think? You guys let me know. Should I start from the beginning again? I don't remember in the story where I am, or should I try to...
Yeah. That's the problem I have with those games.
Yeah.
That's the problem I have with those games, unfortunately, is I get into it and then I have to put it down for a while and then I forget the storyline and I'm like, oh, I don't know where I'm at or what I'm doing or why I'm here. So
yeah, like I love RPG, especially on Assassin's Creed, because there's so many side quests. Right now I'm just like doing side quests, but I don't know what am I supposed to be doing in the main story. So like, I think Jay said like just start over and probably end up doing that.
Yeah,
that's my advice. Just because I've personally been in that situation where I'm grasping, at anything that's going to trigger what I'm supposed to be doing or what's been happening, because it's been 6 months since I logged in, and then I usually just shut the game off and like I feel like totally like a buzzkill that night. This is my gaming session, but I like can't. I don't know. It's such a first world problem, but it is a problem.
It is definitely.
That absolutely kills me when it's when it's a game that it's good and you really enjoy it. So I've got two of those that are, I wouldn't say, I would actually define that as kind of my pile of shame, because pile of shame is supposed to be games that you collect and you buy and you haven't gotten around to. But I've got two that I don't know why it got kind of, I wouldn't say I lost interest, but one is Red Dead Redemption 2. Right? It doesn't matter whether it's for a PlayStation or PC. Those are ones that I just don't know what happened. I love all the Rockstar games. Couldn't get past that. And the other one is Control. Control is just absolutely up my alley. And I don't know. It's one of those things where I probably had too long of a break, or I find something new and shiny, like Back 4 Blood or something new came on Game Pass, and I wanted to have played day one, like Forza Horizon 5 is probably going to endanger some of my other my
absolutely
my Back 4 Blood
time. It's so good.
Yeah, those. But yeah, sounds like you guys have other games that just absolutely, AAA titles like Red Dead or Control that you guys haven't finished.
It's funny for me with Red Dead. I had no interest in the story at all. I just wanted to be a cowboy, ran around, had a lot of fun with it. But when it came to the main story, I was like, I don't care. I just want to ride around and like be a cowboy. And to me, that was satisfying, right? And I'll boot it up once in a while and just do that.
And the thing that surprised me about Red Dead Redemption 2 is I've been intimidated by the story as well, but just getting into it, it's such a gorgeous atmospheric game that even if you're not like entirely sure where you're at in it, you can just go around and do stuff and you're sure to encounter something interesting, right?
Yeah.
So
I think I got overwhelmed with the, wait, I have to go hunting now? Oh, wait, I have to craft things? I've got to collect weeds?
It's a lot.
Yeah, I haven't run into that too hard yet, but you can sort of see it lurking beneath, there's all these mechanics lurking beneath the surface. It's like, you have to master that eventually.
Red Redemption reminds me of that HBO show that they're all robots, but it's a Western.
Westworld.
Oh, yeah.
Westworld.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like I'm in a little Westworld over there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Westworld they just nailed that aesthetic, and it, so did Red Dead. They both just like nailed the aesthetic so well. I need to watch more of that show. I watched the first season. It was a good show.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I still need to watch the third, finish the second. It has a pretty good, interesting story. So yeah, highly recommend it.
Cool. Well, I think most people that are tuning in are I'm sure they're thrilled by our gaming discussion, but they want to hear about these new processors. And I'm just going to ask you the question: what is so great about this 12th gen? Sell it to me right now.
Well, where do we begin? Well, first of all, I think people, desktop builders and gamers, they're after the ultimate top in performance, and there's a lot of great performance in Alder Lake, and it's not just outright brute forcing the approach to getting performance. There is a pretty big difference on how this architecture works compared to every other Intel architecture before it, and that's the performance hybrid architecture, which is kind of melds two different approaches between power and efficiency, or performance and efficiency. And the results have you've seen it if you've read any of the coverage and reviews. So you don't have to take it from us. This is a really, really strong performer.
Yeah, and this new architecture you have, like Marcus was saying, it's hybrid, and the reason it's hybrid, you probably heard it already. I'm probably going crazy with it, but you have those performance cores and those efficient cores that are in there, and they have completely different tasks. So performance, like it says, even though it sounds redundant, is for doing all the heavy lifting, so rendering, gaming, all the other stuff like that. And then the efficient cores, we are tasked to do the background tasks or something that are not that important to you, or not. For example, if you're gaming, if you want to stream, your stream will run on the efficient cores. Now,
the way I've described this to people, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is like the way this kind of helps is, if you have a game thread, because I used to be a CPU and GPU reviewer specifically, so like issues of like CPU bound games and all that fun stuff is like near and dear to my heart. And it's like, okay, we need more per core performance. And so like having a CPU like I think Alder Lake, the reviews have demonstrated that it is the single threaded performance leader, and that's really important if you're trying to get maximum frames per second. And so, but this new hybrid architecture, the way I've been explaining it to people is like you have these super powerful cores available to do, those really gnarly threads when you need it. And then, for this more steady state stuff, like you're running your stream in the background, then, that's a relatively constant workload. And, the efficiency cores are more than up to that. So you have, that maximum power available when you need it. You have, those background tasks, they can go where they need. It's just a really intelligent distribution of resources. So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of the impression I've gotten.
That's exactly what it is. And even though the efficient cores are called efficient, and people think like they're just small cores, if you take a look at them, and I don't know if people have seen in-depth reviews, but those efficient cores perform as well or as good as our 10th generation. So there are no pushovers.
No, absolutely not.
So what you guys
some of the coverage from beforehand, the other approaches to hybrid architecture, they call it big little, but there's, in terms of the little thing is really the amount of space it takes, these E-cores takes up on the die.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's the key is, Jeff, you said before that, Alder Lake or 12th gen is super great at single thread performance, but that's actually been a hallmark of all Intel processors, even, going back to Skylake architecture, single thread is really, really strong. But now the E-cores just ramp up, the multi-thread performance, and the fact that you can fit 4 E-cores in about the same space as one performance core. That just kind of tells you that if you want single thread performance, the performance cores are there. But if you want really, really strong multi-thread performance, you can pack a lot of E-cores into the same space, right? So it's 4 E-cores, again, one performance core. You can kind of do the math that if you want to do the trade-off. But the top end SKU right now in the 12900 is 8 performance cores and 8 efficient cores, so you get 8 of both.
So as a streamer, this is by far the most exciting part of this new processor to me, because just to give everyone like a little streamer pro tip, if you're not running on 12th gen Intel, something you pretty much have to do every time you go to stream is you have to go in and you have to run OBS as admin. And you have to make sure that in Windows that you actually have OBS set to high priority. Otherwise, your game is going to use up all the CPU it possibly can. And then basically OBS isn't going to have enough CPU left over and you're going to have performance issues. If you forget to run as admin, you got to reboot OBS. And the number of times I've had to do that in my life is very high. So having a CPU that's basically doing that, or splitting these tasks apart and allowing me to make sure my OBS is always going to run well by default, is extremely appealing. And yeah, needless to say, I'm eager and excited to try this out.
We're teaching each other. I'm sorry to jump in, but we're teaching each other things here, because I've never done this with my OBS stuff.
Oh, if you do anything that's high CPU intensity in terms of gaming, your CPU is going to get maxed out by the game, right? And then there's not going to be enough left over for OBS. And that's why the thread director is extremely interesting to me, because that's solving that problem. And I feel like this is probably true for video rendering and any, tasks like that, and lots of other things, I'm sure, but that's my realm that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, you hit right on it. You mentioned the Intel Thread Director, and that is kind of the piece that helps answer how do these things work together, because you're really mashing elegantly. I'm not gonna. Our process engineers have done an elegant job of putting these two architectures together. But how do they work, right? And a lot of it does come down to software and the scheduler. And for you to have to actually make that choice to say, hey, I want to run, OBS as admin, that is an extra step that a lot of people just aren't able to do it, right? And the fact is, we want things to happen transparently. If you didn't know how to do that, people would wonder, why is this program not working or performing the way that I want it to?
And so the fact that Jeff didn't know that is like, it's like, how many other streamers don't know that that's something that you can do? But
and then you get angry. He's like, "What? Why is my computer?"
Of course,
I thought it was the best of the best. And
having something manage this for you is super useful, because like if you're going to stream, you know how many things you're juggling in your mind, and like the minute before you press go live, like if you don't have a checklist, you forget stuff, and sometimes weird things happen. You get those annoying technical issues at the start of your stream, so you really don't want that cognitive load.
Look, I've been streaming for just about a decade now, and I still forget to hit some of the check boxes. And of course, as time has gone on, we've gotten more and more tools that help us. This has been one of those problems that has yet to be solved until now.
Do you guys have like a flight checklist, or maybe do a flight checklist like the pilots do? It's like that one.
I need like a physical one.
Honestly, it's not a bad way to look at it, but streaming is there's a lot of moving parts when it comes down to it, and this is super cool. So the thread director obviously is going to be taking these performance cores and efficiency cores. Is this something that is all determined by the thread director, or can I influence it in any way?
There are options. So you can actually assign what they call hard affinity. If there's something kind of like what you do with OBS, you could actually just assign it as a high priority thread, and it will. You can do that. I mean, power users absolutely have that, but that will take up a resource that will otherwise not become available to thread director, so the system won't work as optimally as designed. So the idea is that eventually, thread director Windows 11 will continuously improve to the point where it gets better with every update to the software. But if you want to have that control to assign hard affinity to a certain task, that is still an option.
It's like, one way to think of it is like, for those car enthusiasts out there, at the beginning when you have an automatic transmission, you're like, oh, I can gear shift better than my automatic transmission. But nowadays, the automatic transmission, at least for upshifting, you cannot beat it. It's the best thing. Like that's where in Formula One you see they only have downshifters, not upshifters, because you just press the gas and the automatic transmission will take care of it. This is kind of the same here. This is kind of the first step to get there. Right now, it's great, but it can only get better as we kind of defines where the workloads should go in a specific core thread.
Makes sense. That's very interesting. Okay, so when it comes to power usage, basically what I've heard is so far is like these cores have unlocked the ability to use more power, right? We've generated better hardware across the board. We've got some incredible motherboards now and insane AIOs that provide really good cooling. So it seems like the potential is higher than ever when it comes to just drawing out the power from these chips.
Right. So one of the things that we did here is, well, we kind of redefine what power is, or the definition, or Intel's definition of power. So now we have like base power and max turbo power. Depending on which processor you get or how it's configured, you have your base power. It's at 125 watts for your regular processor, but for the Ks, they come for the i9K. It comes at 241 base and max. But you still have the option depending on like on the motherboard and the BIOS settings and stuff. If you want, you can have it as a base as 125 and turbo all the way to 241, or you can just leave it at 241 until the end of time. So you'll see that performance frequency charges be pegged at the top of that.
Okay.
And I think what we've seen from... Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
No, yeah, I was going to say, like, I think when we discuss this, I mean, it's important to keep in mind that this is not like a static figure that's happening all the time, right? This is not, modern systems are highly dynamic. You're not like, this is not like pushing the accelerator to the floor. And, like tasks, generally don't go on forever. You're not like running your CPU full out infinitely. That's not how most things work. So a peak power figure like this, I think it's important to keep in mind. It's like, yeah, it can achieve that. And so, you have to be mindful of that. But, work, when work starts and finishes, you might be drawing that amount of power for a certain amount of time, but it's not all the time. And so it's,
No, that was exactly
be mindful of that.
Yeah, I mean, yes, 241. I think we've just raised the ceiling on just. I mean, these are K series processors, right? They're unlocked out of the box. So the idea is that people who buy these will want to run them, will want to squeeze every bit of performance out of them. So we would just want to raise that ceiling and give people the option. And of course, they can, like I said, with the idea is all about flexibility. So if they want to dial down the power, absolutely can. And yeah, for all out multi-threaded workloads, whichever ones that completely pin the processor to the max, you're going to hit that 241. But even if you're running a modern game and, just wanting the most performance you can, like you said, Jeff, there's really very few workloads. In fact, if you look at all the independent testing, the processor really doesn't get anywhere near close to the max. In fact, it runs very efficiently, even running like a very modern workload, game.
It's like one of my favorite benchmarks I used to do when I was reviewing CPUs. I think there's a temptation to just like fire up a Cinebench or fire up a Blender or whatever, and look at just look at your kilowatt or whatever it is, and just make note of that number and say, oh, that's power consumption. It's like, no, actually, Blender renders finish, right? They have an endpoint. And so it's like when that workload is finished, you can do some really crude math and say, okay, well, it consumed this many kilojoules over time, and sometimes like that higher peak power figure, if the chip gets done faster, you consumed less energy over time, right? Versus like even
how
a
long
chip
it takes
that
for it to get to rest.
Because like even if you have like a chip that draws less power at the wall, if it's slower, it may actually end up consuming more energy period, to do the same workload. So like, again, this is a very dynamic thing, and so and
I don't think you see a lot of games hitting constantly for that long amount of power.
They do not. Games in general do not. No.
Video rendering, sure, but games, no.
Right.
But even then, if you're doing video rendering, you need that power. The faster, the more power you have, the faster the render, the happier the editor, right? How many times back in the day I used to have to set my PC up to render for 4, 5, 6, maybe overnight, like hours, just because that's where we were. And we're unlocking, I mean, even the norm of what PSUs can offer now. We've had this discussion on this channel recently. I had to move up to 1,000 watts just because of that's kind of where we're at with a lot of modern hardware. If you're running a top end GPU like me, with a nice processor and a lot of other capture cards and other things being plugged into the motherboard, I mean, there's a lot of power being used. So
like high speed storage, like you said, capture cards,
high speed storage,
and that all takes some use.
getting all this power. This is where we kind of come in. It's like getting all this power to the chips is that's the motherboard's job. You have your voltage regulator module on the motherboard. We've built out all of the Z690 motherboards to provide high quality power. We have really large multi-phase VRM setups with integrated power stages, stuff like that, big heat sinks on them. So you can, again, if you need to run these chips all out, you absolutely can with our stuff. And, it will deliver, it's not going to flag. The performance is not going to flag over time because, those components can stay cool and keep the chip happy. So, yeah.
So your top motherboard, how many power phases do you guys design that for?
So the very top end, I think, is let me take a look here. I'm actually just looking this up. So the RG Maximus Z690 Extreme is it's the most extreme motherboard we have. It's got a 24+1 VRM setup. So
nice.
And each of those is
that's plenty.
yeah. So that's each of those is 105 amps per power stage. It's really the best kind of overkill. So, but even again, it's not just about the number of phases. It's not just about those raw amperage figures. It's like, can it keep cool? And again, like we have these huge heat sinks, the high surface area heat sinks. We have this IO shield that's built out of alloy. It keeps it's part of that VRM heat sink system, keeps those parts happy. So yeah, that's the approach we employ on all our stuff.
I want to thank you guys for the embedded IO shield. You have no idea how many times I built the system. And then I look in the back and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot to put the IO shield.
Yep.
That's the best.
Oh, it's like, no, thank you guys.
Yeah, that's a great feature.
It is.
And
I've been there too.
Yeah. You also guys have the quick release, right, for the PCI card?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
awesome.
we have a couple new quick release systems on these boards too. We have what we call the M.2 Q latch, which lets you just put an M.2 SSD right into the slot, and just twist your fingers, little retainer goes in place. You don't have to screw with the screws.
You don't have to have your M.2 like half bent like me the first time I ever installed one, because I didn't want to properly learn how to do it. Yay.
These things here look so simple, but it's like, why took us this long to figure it out? It's like, thank you. These things are awesome. Yeah.
But you mentioned the Q release as well, and that's a button on the front edge of the motherboard that actually triggers the little slot retainer on the graphics card, so you don't have to reach in there between the graphics card and the heat sink and try and press it, or as I usually do, you have to poke a screwdriver in there and hope you don't break the clip.
Something on the way. Yeah, exactly.
with a 3080, it is impossible to get your hand in there. It's like I have this steel ruler that I use to unclip it from the motherboard when I have to remove it, and this is the kind of innovation I'm here for.
You kind of wonder how the old release even lasted this long before this is sort of innovation.
Well, I think it's also just the necessity of these larger GPUs, because when we look at the generational change from a 2080 to a 3080, the size of the GPUs is drastically different.
Still increased. Yeah.
So I think it was finally okay, enough is enough. It's time.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about the cores are obviously at the center of the CPU, but modern systems aren't just CPU cores. They're, this is essentially a system on chip to a degree. You've got your memory controllers. Alder Lake now has support for DDR5. We've got PCI Express 5.0, which doubles the bandwidth of PCI Express 4.0, which already doubled the bandwidth of
Gen 3. And the cores are still.
Right. So now, again, we have this, it's not just about CPU core performance. We have this massive increase in memory bandwidth, but we have this massive increase in peripheral interconnect bandwidth. So what possibilities do you think that opens up? What makes you really excited about that stuff?
Possibilities. Yeah, sorry.
Possibilities.
Well, I mean, any sort of bandwidth heavy workload, right? You just want to get more data across system to the CPU, how you can. But that's the thing. I think the part of this is that at some point, our platforms have to adopt and implement the latest technologies, right? And of course, we've taken hits in the past for not implementing, the latest PCIe, and we thought, well, it's if we have the capability to build in something that, maybe isn't, I mean, PCIe Gen 5, it's not really relevant for today's add-in cards, but they will be sometime, right? So just to have that possibility there, exactly, future-proof your system, and it's always backwards compatible too, right? Just because we support the latest, I mean, it doesn't mean that any of your stuff doesn't perform the way it does. And that's especially true for memory, right? DDR4 is support is super important, and that is, it's more flexibility depending on what you have around or what your budget is and what you have available.
Yeah, because we do offer, I think we specifically offer motherboards that can take advantage of DDR4 or well, not on the same board, but you can choose a DDR4 Z690 motherboard or DDR5 Z690 motherboard depending on your budget, your needs. So that there's flexibility there.
But they are not backwards compatible. One or the other. You got to make sure
they're not interchangeable.
Yeah.
No, but there's a completely. If you look at the DDR5 specs or the JD specs, there's a completely different monster.
Yeah.
But it's a cool monster.
Yeah.
Now the previous the DDR4 6, they just had the memory modules in there. The new ones also have like power modulators in there, and it has a bunch of stuff. You also you have internal error correction code, because now there's so much stuff going on in there that you need a bit of error correction, and also the speeds for that. It's pretty exciting. I mean, and it's just starting, right? So it can only get faster.
Right, because these systems, you build a system with this platform. I think the modern PC, the lifespan is like 5 years at a minimum. This is going to be around for a while if you build one of these today. And so it's really important. I think monitors are getting higher resolution all the time. We're placing more demands on the graphics card output. Textures are getting larger to support all that stuff. Stuff has to move across the bus faster. The quality of simulation is getting more and more sophisticated. So it's like, you kind of want to get in. If you're upgrading today, get in on that ground floor
that we're talking about earlier on for your new toy. Get it ready for the simulation.
VR is
it'll push your hardware.
VR is so it's not I think VR headsets especially are one of these things where if you look at like the amount of resolution a modern HMD has, and like the amount of data that has to move over a peripheral bus to get all that out and displayed. I'm adding like 3 trackers to my body now, and who knows what we're going to have in the future. And it's really exciting. But
fascinating tech.
Do you have like a dedicated room for that?
So I'm really lucky in that I have an office to myself
Nice.
in my house, and it is the center part of it is empty enough that I can just slide my chair aside, and then I essentially have a room scale space. It's about 7 by 11 feet.
No.
So it's big.
That's a really good.
Yeah, that's great.
So I've got the base stations in the corners, and I just pull the headset out into the center of it, and I go.
My space is similar, and it's a lot of fun. It doesn't mean I won't run into the wall if I'm playing super hot. I'll still dive into the wall, but
You should put like a camera recording yourself playing VR. Just this is
what I stream it.
We both stream when we do this stuff. Like we look like idiots, and for everyone to watch.
I need to follow you guys. I need to watch your stream.
That's right.
I do need to. I do need to call out that we have the giveaway to do because the timer did run out a minute ago. So I just everyone, it's in Twitch chat. You type !play. We're just gonna get this going, and we'll have the giveaway done via this. Top 3 players will actually win a $20 Games Planet voucher. So as soon as this loads up, you guys can just type !play. But yeah, VR streaming is definitely a new frontier.
And again, we talk about single-threaded performance. It's really interesting how this plays out in practice, because one of the most popular, I think, one of the games I have certainly been spending the most time in recently is VR Chat. I don't know if you've heard of that. but these, it's an application. It's not a big game. It's not something that people think about necessarily, but if you're into it, you're really into it. And so I was playing that this weekend. I was getting such awful performance on my main desktop. Because I have, okay, well, I'm going to brag, but I have a Core i9-9980XE in my main desktop.
Nice, cool.
You should save that and treasure that.
Yeah. I've got that. It's really, really nice for these like really wide, heavy duty workloads like video editing, like bouncing out Unity models and stuff like that. But VR chat hates it. It hates it. It does not like running on a CPU with that many cores.
That's interesting.
And I was like, because I had I had an RTX 2080 Ti in there, and it was like I was getting, I don't know, it was falling all the way down to 15 frames per second or something. It's just one of the, again, it's not something, 18 cores is not something you expect the average PC to see. And it's not that these cores are low performance, it's just that there's so many of them that like inter-thread communications and stuff can get,
I was going to say, the thread just jumping from core to core.
Yeah. I don't know. But so what I did was I got really frustrated with it. Then I threw together an i9-9900K system with the same GPU, and it got way, way, way better. So like it's a game so this is, again, if you have a game like this where it really, and like GPU utilization is so weird with this, because like below 50%. So it doesn't really care about the shader resources you have available. It cares about, that one nasty thread that's doing something like physics, sync up or whatever. I don't even know because I'm not a game developer, but I know enough to be dangerous. But so it's like, again, you just want to get the most performance out of this. You have to have a CPU with that single threaded performance, because it went, again, I was getting like 15 FPS in some situations, and you get this really beefy per core performance with this older, even with this older CPU, and suddenly it's like, okay, now we're at 45 FPS or 90 FPS, much more consistently, even worlds with lots of people in them. And so yeah, it's just something you want in your pocket, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. That's interesting. Yeah, I haven't had, my only experience with VR was back in the days when it's still coming out, and you had the nice roller coaster simulations. So, but that was about 9 years ago. So, but it would be interesting to try that, see, and especially now with Tall Chen, let us know when you get to try to use it on your setup. It'll be pretty interesting to see how the performance goes.
Yeah, I'm really curious now to see how it would benefit that particular workload, because it seems like, again, the more CPU or per thread performance you can throw at it, the better the frame rate, which of course makes sense. And I have the Index coming, which is, I think it's 120 frames per second versus the Vive, which the displays are 120 hertz, I think, versus the Vive, which is 90 hertz. So it's like it unlocks that new performance ceiling. It's like, okay, well, if this can, if 12th gen CPU can drive that to the max, that would be really exciting. It's something I'm going to have to experiment with.
And I feel like that's with the HMD, that's going to make even more of a difference than a display, because VR is very immersive. And
yes,
I find that sometimes I get motion sickness, if I play a game like Half-Life Alyx for too long.
The higher the frame rate you can. Sorry, I talked over you.
No, go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the higher frame rate, it's weird how the brain compensates for this, because you can be playing at like suboptimal frame rates, and your brain's like, oh, this is okay. I'm just going to kind of, struggle through it, and you'd stop thinking about it after a while. But then you like do what I did. You switch systems entirely, and suddenly it's back to 90 FPS. It's like, oh my gosh, I've been missing out. This is so much smoother. It's so much nicer. Yeah. As Jake said, as Jake said, it's just definitely something you want. Yeah.
No, it's Jake mentioned Half-Life Alyx, and that's the one where I'm like, oh, I really feel like I'm missing out on VR just because I don't have the space or setup.
Yeah.
Just to run that, and
that is absolutely one to go out of your way for.
It's so worth it. If I had my headset just for Alyx and Beat Saber, that's all I need. And it's worth the investment, in my opinion. Alyx made me a very, very happy man. Everything about that game, just immersion to the fullest. Valve kind of reclaimed their throne as like that innovative game design company that we knew and loved, and they definitely showed they still have some talent there to make awesome games. And I'm hopeful to see more.
That's a strong testament to a single title that's like a trickle from, still a legendary game developer, but we're still seeing if they can count to 3. And that is one where,
well, now
I guess that
yeah, I mean they
one
definitely
game bought a lot
can't
of
count to
goodwill.
3, but that's fine. Maybe they don't need to.
Maybe they don't need to. Well, I mean, I would not turn down. I'm sure everyone's thinking about Half-Life 3, but I would take a Portal 3 probably over Half-Life 3, maybe.
All right.
Well, I can't see the future.
Just play
but
Alex.
I think if you play Alex,
don't say
you'll
anything else,
see.
Jeff. Just tell him to play Alex.
Okay.
Like that's
play Alex.
But it is, it's takes place between 1 and 2, right? Or is it in between episode? So. It's Half-Life 2 episode 1. I don't know. It takes place.
I don't know. It's been too long.
But it is like an in-between game. They add to the story, the original story we know and love, and that's all we'll say. Congratulations to Grim Razor, Seorian, and Stangiish. You guys will be getting vouchers. Stangy, you just got to type in chat to confirm that you're here. I know these two have confirmed. We need this bubble to turn green, and then you're good for a $20 voucher. But yeah, no.
Nice.
Anything that we've been like completely like failing to discuss today?
No, there's actually kind of a couple of things. Well, 2 things that for me was pretty neat. One is, yes, you have, like we were talking about, you have 16 lanes on PCIe Gen 5, the CPU level, but you also get extra 4 PCIe lanes at PCIe Gen 4. So thinking of storage, so that was pretty neat. And the other stuff is at the chipset level, you get I think is 4 and 4 PCIe Gen 4. So I'm kind of curious. I can't wait to get my system going and try to do a RAID PCIe Gen 4 from there, which should be pretty awesome. So that's one cool thing to keep in mind. Let me think what else we have in there going on.
So
Mark,
maybe here's. I was going to say, one thing we haven't talked about at all that people might overlook, because a lot of enthusiast systems are built today with discrete GPUs, obviously, but these chips do have processor graphics available, and
they do.
And one of the I'm not sure anybody has covered it. I don't know what the generation of graphics architecture is, but one thing I think people tend to overlook, you have a CPU with an Intel CPU in your system, you actually have access to this high quality accelerated video encoder, QuickSync. Yep. And it's actually really useful if you're a streamer, because you have this extra resource that you can use to like do a local recording or do a stream with. Even if
Jeff,
you're not,
why you got to further sell this CPU to me? You're gonna make me go buy a Z690 motherboard and a chip like right now.
So the QuickSync is a completely separate engine from the cores, like Jeff was saying.
Right.
Yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
No, okay. So it's a completely different engine from the core. So you're not taking away performance away from the cores from your game from the other tasks, and while you're doing the video compression for that. It's pretty neat. Yeah, it's like the secret weapon that it doesn't get talked about a lot.
Right.
And the other thing, the integrated graphics do a lot of help, well, especially nowadays. But if you're debugging integrated graphics, when you're debugging your build, that helps a lot, because at least for sure you have a video output that works. You're trying to figure out
yeah, for sure.
And yes, it's not a high-end discrete graphics, but I think the integrated graphics do really well. This one, if I recall correctly, has 32 execution units in there. It does uses the Tiger Lake architecture, so that one.
It's got the XE media engine in it, so you get all the hardware accelerated features from the Iris XE graphics, but of course, just the overall EUs are low in count.
Because I like I said, I think people overlook this, and they really shouldn't, because I had the opportunity to play with the QuickSync encoder as a stream output on an 11th gen processor for desktop, and it's like, oh, this is actually, it's really high quality. It is, I think it's up there with the best on the market, and it's just it's on your processor. It's something you're already getting if you're not buying an F SKU. So it's like, go ahead, enable this, like get this resource available to you if you're a streamer. You want this available on your system as an extra resource. So it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And your experience with the one on 11th gen, it's also a 32 EU part. So you're going to get the same, if not better.
Right.
On
well, yeah, just the quality of the accelerator algorithm, I think, is what I was. Yeah. So
yeah, it's one of those unsung
it
heroes.
should be similar.
For the people who use it or who discovered like you did, they really know. It's one of those long things on feature lists that never really make it to the top because we always like to talk the speeds and feeds. But that's quick thing's been a feature at Intel for a long time. But this is one that's totally appreciated and appreciable for the people that it works for.
Yeah, because the streaming, I think gaming and streaming is all, you have all these problems that come up. It's like, well, how am I going to solve this? I don't have an extra capture card, or I don't have like a high, my CPU doesn't have enough cores to do I don't know, software encoding or something like that, and run the game well at the same time, because that's a super challenging workload. Obviously the 12th gen stuff is quite a bit of multi-threaded performance, especially the i5 12600K is that's a 10 core part, I think. It's like 6 plus 4.
That's right.
Which is really incredible for, I think it's a $200 chip.
Oh yeah.
Or something close to that.
That is
like that's
new value
crazy. Yeah. So you get that awesome single threaded performance and then enough multi-threaded performance to like really make it a potent PC. I think people should not sleep on that one. But
yeah, I think that's the one to go with. Make a little,
and then on top of all that, it comes with the graphics engine in it. So you get this extremely versatile high performance CPU. Again, for $200, it's pretty incredible.
I'm making my case now for why I need to build another PC. My wife's gonna kill me.
Tell her you need a small form factor PC, so you guys travel. You can use that just for work purposes.
A little suitcase PC.
There you go.
Briefcase PC.
It might work. It might work. Jeff, I gotta ask. I'll ask everyone. Out of all the Z690 that you see on the screen, which is your favorite? Clearly, it's got to be one of the ROG ones. They're the best. So we're just gonna limit it to these.
For me personally, I've always thought that if I'm going to build a system for myself, I obviously respect our extreme boards a lot. It's just that I'm not going to take advantage of everything on them. And so I generally look towards our Hero board, like the Maximus Z690 Hero, because it's still got most of the good stuff on it.
Yeah.
Without going overboard. And
I currently have a Hero board in my machine.
Yeah. So it's that if I was building a system today, that would be the one I would look at first, because it's still got the onboard Thunderbolt, two Thunderbolt ports on it. It's got
the goods.
Two full length expansion slots. It's got front panel USB 3.2 Gen 1, Wi-Fi 6E. With an Intel radio on it. This is the board that's just right for me. So
for me, I'm a man of practicality. So my choice here is actually thinking that if I were to build a themed build, and supply situations weren't the way it was, and I could make something that was all a single kind of like a frost white theme, I think that that formula board looks pretty cool and able to.
The formula board for this generation looks absolutely spectacular. It's really, really pretty.
That's the only reservation I have is then I'm constrained or confined to find everything else that matches, including like the GPU.
Yeah. White parts are getting much more accessible, especially ROG. We have like way more white products than before, but good luck getting like a white 3080.
Exactly.
Not getting to 3080.
A little bit of spray paint, right? Is that all?
Oh God. I mean, sure. Question mark.
I'll plaster dip all the other parts.
Yeah, I was trying to configure a system the other day, and I was looking at the prices of. I know this is bidding a dead horse, but I was just looking at the prices of the video cards. Like, man, that's just pretty much the 50% of the system now.
At least. Yeah.
Yeah.
I won a New Egg raffle, and I saw the price, and I just said, I guess I don't need this.
So you didn't actually win a New Egg raffle. You were just the chosen one to be able to open the wallet.
Yeah, exactly. We did take advantage for one for my wife's build, but Ended up skipping on the second time we won. But anyways, that's the world we live in, where hardware shortages galore at pretty much every single. I mean, are toaster ovens limited? Are they?
I don't know.
I'm sure the smart ones are, right?
Yeah,
with
exactly.
the
It's
shortage.
just
Yeah.
like it's a crazy time, but
It's like unsmart the home.
Yeah.
Unsmart the home.
Save the chips for the games.
Yeah, right. use those wafers for
Yes.
the highest performance silicon, please.
If you can use your toaster to mine, then you will see.
Oh boy.
Well,
Yeah.
they both throw it around the same amount of heat, so at least
Yeah.
one is making my bread, my
Yeah.
sandwich.
cool. Jeff, any final questions you have for these guys?
No, I'm actually, I've kind of psyched myself up. I really want one of these now. I'm gonna have to
and
go
I
out
did,
and,
It's a problem. It's like, you
Yeah.
start looking and it's like, oh, ooh. And they're like showing off the exact color scheme that my entire setup is in these images, so that's not helping me. I always do that. The very like retro wave pink and blue kind of colors.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I
the
love
other
that
thing,
too. Yeah.
one last thing to keep in mind is the new. Well, it's a whole new architecture, but also the new increases on the L2 and L3 caches and how they work on the different cores. So the L2, the L3 is sure among both clusters.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and the L2 on the efficient cores is, so you have a cluster of 4, and the L2 level share above that cluster. And,
Okay.
Yeah, but then the performance cores, they have their own L2.
Yeah,
But-
right. Because I think that's interesting. Because again, like we say, with performance cores, generally they have private. I think with Intel architectures, usually the L2 is private, the L3 is shared. And so, but among all the cores, but then so having a shared L2 among the efficiency cores is pretty interesting. I think that's something you see more in mobile, or mobile as in like cell phone processor designs. So
Yeah, like we were saying, like the big proliferators.
yeah, right. So that's yeah, that's really interesting. Again, there's so many cool things about these. I just haven't had the time to dig into. I'm gonna have to go back and read all the details now, because I'm really hyped.
Yeah, it's so much fun to nerd out on Alder Lake. I think another thing that we've talked a lot about how like things work at kind of the chip level, or just with the chipset itself, or with your guys' motherboards. But we talk about Thread Director and the way it works. But I think that some people will also hear that it's Thread Director works from a lot of our collaboration with Microsoft. And yes, that means that it is tuned. Windows 11 is both tuned for Alder Lake and vice versa. But that doesn't mean that that's the only option, right? I mean, Windows 10. There's a lot of good reasons that people still have to stick with Windows 10, and this is an 8+8 architecture, and like we said, those E-cores are super performant. They're just slightly improved in single integer performance over like Comet Lake, 10th gen.
Yeah.
So even if you're not taking absolute full advantage of Thread Director with Windows 11, if you're running Windows 10, you're still getting these a lot of the performance benefits of this architecture.
Yeah, for sure.
Would you guys say this is like the biggest generational jump you've had in a while?
Yeah, actually,
easily. Yeah, by far.
Very easily. Marcus and I were talking. Was it a week ago? 2 weeks ago?
A couple weeks ago, right on launch day on 27th.
Yeah. We were saying that this is probably the biggest architectural change since we went from single core to multi-core, right?
Core. I mean, just the thinking of it, maybe not in performance leap, but overall, just looking at going to Core 2 Duo, Core 2 Extreme was just mind blowing.
Fundamentally,
it's like it's not from multi-core. You're looking at multiples of different types of cores. So
right.
I think in terms of innovation and excitement, it's just a huge, more than generational leap. Because you're putting these 2 generational leaps E cores and 2 generational leap in P cores. And
also the way how they interact, and also like we're saying, the memory sharing, the ring bus, and we haven't touched modern yet, but there's a lot of overclocking features, knobs that you can for that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely.
Yeah, I think if you're again, we've gotten to the point now. I mean, this is just the way of things, where the very top end SKUs, like the i9s of the world, are highly optimized out of the factory. All the performance is there. You don't have to necessarily tune it if you don't want. It's like go into your firmware, enable XMP, get your memory running at the right speeds, just let it run. It's one of the perks of buying those higher end parts. But maybe if you're looking at the i5 12600K and you're like, okay, well, we want the most performance out of this we can get. We do have our AI overclocking feature, which essentially is one click. We've profiled hundreds of CPUs to look and see like where the headroom is and what you can get out of it. And, we can evaluate silicon quality and stuff like that to produce these kinds of profiles. And if you put one of those chips in the Z690 board, or I think it is separated. It is separated out. I know the ROG, the Maximus series boards have AI overclocking. The Strix board should.
Yep, I believe they do.
And I think the Prime-A board does. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look, but that's usually how it breaks down. So if you're looking at a 12600K and you're like, okay, well, I want more performance. But I don't want to go through the process of iteratively overclocking it. We do have that AI overclocking feature. It's really cool, and it works really well.
And, like you said about headroom, about, i9s are being quite optimized at the top of the bin, but, there is more headroom in these, even the i9s, and those e-cores open up a whole new possibility.
That's really cool.
And there's headroom in those e-cores.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that.
Interesting.
So one of the
just more stuff to play with.
One of the things I've been talking about a lot on this stream lately is, are we in an era where single PC streaming is viable? And my answer to that up to this point, I always say no. I say it's just not possible. We really do need to utilize a second PC to handle the encoding, but it might finally be here. The single PC streaming.
Well, you should, Jake, try it out, right? I mean, a lot of it depends on exactly what you're using the stream for, right?
It's
what
true.
are you running?
Every game is different. Some games use more CPU and GPU, and there's different kinds of encoding options. There's a lot of variables in play here. But as someone that streams a wide variety, I want to be able to say, 9 times out of 10, can one PC do it? If I need to rely on a second PC once in a while, that's fine. But
you can also just be like me. You can also just be like me and throw 18 cores at the problem, and then that solves most things.
Yeah. I maybe that's what I need.
Yeah.
We need the answer but does it stream Crysis?
I think we're beyond that. Now it's does it stream Cyberpunk? It's
with all that grass in the Crysis games, it's a real challenge for any stream encoder. So that's
how many instances of Crysis can you stream? I think that's a new question.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I think I'm out of questions, Jeff.
No, I'm just actually I'm coming away. I was intrigued by these chips coming in. Now I'm actually super pumped coming out, and so I think we've learned a lot here that it's going to make these really appealing. I may have to build a new system.
Absolutely. VR chat. That's your killer
VR
app.
chat. VR chat is the killer app.
That's right.
Yeah, build it and let us know, man.
I will for sure.
Pretty curious to see what you guys find.
Yeah, both on the one PC to stream, and of course how Alder Lake works with VR chat. Yeah, we'd love to.
We'll do.
There's a lot of testing
and throw some AI overclocking at it. I want to see how far you're able to push those e-cores.
Okay. Yeah, I may have to pick up a 12600K because I don't really need absolute multi-threaded performance. But
I don't go part way. It's 12900 or nothing. With what I do, with what I throw at these machines, we're going all out. But cool. Well, Alex and Marcus, I'll give the floor to you guys if you want to do any shout outs or call outs or anything like that.
Hey, no. First of all, we want to thank you guys for having us on the show and all your viewers. Honestly, Asus motherboards are some of my absolute favorite. Clearly, I have a little bit of an Asus headset there. So
you can't see it in this scene, but we can see it now.
Yeah. Thanks. So you guys make some fantastic stuff, and honestly, the ecosystem and the way that in Intel processors we do rely on strong partners like you to help us get to the consumers for them to build their best. And we do love the fact that the PC ecosystem allows people to have a lot of choice in the stuff that they can build. But Asus has some really brilliant engineers that mesh really well with our hardware.
Thank you.
So and 12th Gen is going to be a fantastic platform for that.
Yeah, and just one note, because I am a journalist and at heart, and I do need to be correct. I said earlier the i5-12600K was $200. That would be a spectacular value. It is actually $300 MSRP. So
I think you were thinking the 12. Oh, well, something. Yeah. The successor of the 1100, the 11400. That's probably what you're thinking.
Still a really good price, though. When you look at the market, that's like insane.
Yeah. Yeah, $300 for that, 10 cores, and I think 16 threads. I'm having to usually it's symmetrical, and now I'm having to recalculate. So,
and these are just the first few, the first 6 models.
Yeah, these are the enthusiast ones.
This is the beginning of what you call the biggest generational jump since multi-thread. So that's and I'm just gonna slide a chat question in. What kind of improvements could I see? And this might be hard to answer. Just from a 9900 to a 12900. I mean, that's obviously a massive improvement, but
it depends on what you're doing. It all depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, we've compared against our previous generation. From 11th gen to 12, i9 versus i9, you're looking at a 19% average across all applications. On gaming, you're looking at least 13. So if you're rolling it back, from a couple of generations, there's going to be an appreciable gain, for sure. Yeah. And also like Jeff said, it depends on your workload. Right, for games, I can imagine that a lot of people are still going to be very, very happy with their 9900Ks. For gaming.
Yeah, it's still an epic CPU.
Yeah, totally. But if you're stretching other like multi-threaded workloads, you're going to have a lot of performance gain going to 12th gen.
Yeah, and if you're like I said, if you're on a 5-year-old PC, if you've been keeping like all right, some people are going even longer. There's people still soldiering on with like their i7 2600Ks. It's like, guys, it's time. It really is time. It was time several years ago.
So then on Reddit, there's like this guy's like, finally, I can upgrade from their 2600K to
Well, they need to wait for an extra 10,000K increase in model numbers.
Hey, they pushed that machine for years, and if they made it work and they're ready to upgrade, good for them.
Yeah.
Well, that was a pretty good system. I remember one of those, and it's just like, oh, look at that, 5 gigahertz. All right.
Alex, any final words for us before we roll on out?
No, thank you guys. Appreciate it for the opportunity. Very, very happy to be with you. This is a great show. I love chatting with you guys.
Thank you.
Do this for the rest of the day. For nerds talking. So it's pretty cool. I like it. There's a question in the chat that I'd like to answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Go for it.
They're asking about how long has the quote-unquote big little architecture has been in plan. And we know for Alder Lake, it started about more or less 3 years ago. So just give you guys how long more or less it takes for a CPU to be developed.
3 years.
So, yep.
Was it was it like, was this a big shift from the engineering from before? Like, as someone who's worked in engineering on that side of things, was this like a massive adjustment internally to like make this happen?
It's every CPU brings a lot of challenges to that. So it's like when you talk with with people around, it's like, why didn't you use the space to put 2 extra cores in there and you just went with 4 cores? Those questions that people are bringing now, we brought back then when we were, when we were designing. It's like, why not just have 2 more cores and all these things? So we have to do all this research and all these things and graphs and more graphs than Mr. Burke showing everybody that like, hey, look, this really is going to pay off, and trust us, this is the way to go. So yeah, it is definitely different, right? Because you have 2 different types of cores in there, but no, it was definitely done.
Yeah, it's stuff that's roadmapped and kind of budgeted like years and years out. And this is a total oversimplification. You got these 2 geeks from Intel just talking about, the new architecture, but, ultimately it is like years and years of work from, hundreds, if not thousands of engineers at every level, right? From chip design all the way to manufacturing to bring these things to light.
Design, right? All the way.
and every facet's been even thought about. I know we hadn't really gotten deeply into overclocking, but the fact is that when you're looking across, like 9th gen, 10th gen, you can actually see real improvement between the type of solder thermal interface, the STIM, or the thickness of the heat spreader, or even the thickness of the die itself, right? So everything, if you compare, we've been able to increase the kind of the cooling ability and the thermal performance from every generation. So 12th gen is even better than 11 in that. So even like little things like that, that's thought about carefully from the perspective of just overclockers. Just think about like, how do we make this one better for let's be honest, it's a very niche but very demanding like set of people who actually want to push their processors out of the millions of people that are going to be using 12th gen. But everything like that is planned down to it. So I think that
like you said, it's a new integrated memory controller that has the new XMP3 3.0, and not only that, but there's another feature in the memory. It's memory turbo. So you actually
we didn't even talk about that.
That's right, dynamic memory boost.
So this is like, oh look, turbo 1.0, but now for memory. So it's the first thing that the first generation that has it. So like
turbo, all the things.
Yeah.
Does it come with turbo?
Dynamic voltage and frequency scaling, baby.
I like that.
Yep.
Very cool.
Just like no, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Appreciate the time.
Yeah. It was really, really fun. Thank you so much for coming on and letting us enthuse with you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is very exciting. We're going to do everything in our power to get our hands on one of these new CPUs and show off what it can do in the streaming setting, and then in the future. Doesn't mean it's going to happen right away, but we're going to make it happen eventually. So look forward to more coverage on that front in the future, and it's going to be really fun to see the evolution of this, where this is going to go. Obviously, this is a new starting point for even better chips as time continues to go on. This sounds like a massive leap in the power and performance. Jeff, any final words?
Ooh.
That is gonna do it for Pulse this week, guys. Marcus and Alex, thank you so much for your time and joining us today for the knowledge bombs. We'll see you guys next time. Tomorrow we're playing Back for Blood. We got the whole squad. We're gonna try to finish the game. I don't know if we're gonna succeed, but we're gonna try. 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We'll see you then. GG's. Take care.
Thanks, guys.